Easy to learn, tough to master. That's the secret sauce behind every truly addictive game. In today's video, we're diving into 20 games so ridiculously fun, they might just make you forget everything else in your library. So, yeah, let's get started. Starting off with number 20, it's Deep Rock Galactic. When Deep Rock Galactic first came out, it seemed like it might be a flash in the pan. Sure, cooperative shooters are inherently pretty addictive, but its oddball premise makes it hard to gauge if it was a game that would actually catch on. If you're not familiar, think Left 4 Dead meets Minecraft, but with dwarves, way more mining, and some slick procedural generation that keeps every mission feeling fresh and unpredictable. See, it's simple but satisfying gameplay loop. The climb to get more abilities while unlocking new cosmetics is straightforward enough, but what makes Deep Rock Galactic so addictive that we've lost thousands of hours in it, not necessarily me, but some of the guys around here, it's the extremely easy onboarding process. You can just jump into it for bite-sized 20-minute chunks without any kind of real issue. It's a game that gets so much right, starting with how it makes basic FPS gameplay fun, how it builds from there. It's real well thought out. Even after they've finished working on the game, you get a complete experience with tons of content and loads of potential for fun with friends or even by yourself. At number 19 is Baldur's Gate 3. This one's not hard to understand. Of course, you're going to sink hours and hours into this game. It's a modern CRPG. It's a game that could probably be finished in like a normal-ish amount of time. I mean, for a CRPG, but it's a game where you can do whatever you want, pretty much whenever you want. There are an almost unlimited number of ways to deal with any potentially dangerous situation, whether through an inventive spell use, or just throwing random, sometimes useful junk at enemies, or blowing people up with barrels that probably weren't designed to explode. But hey, they're there, and so is the fire damage. The appeal of Baldur's Gate 3 is the same as any good tabletop game. You want to try everything out, see how the world reacts to what you do. There's no game quite as reactive as this one. There's no game that goes to such lengths to make the game world consistent. You know, we love clearing out the little problems before they become big ones. The whole games within games you can find. The hundreds of little moments that add extra flavor to what is already a very strange stew. There's a reason why people keep putting actual thousands of hours into Baldur's Gate 3, and it's because there's basically no game that's like this that does what this does like this. At number 18 is Slay the Spire. Staring down a new run of Slay the Spire can really feel like gambling. You jump in with a vague idea of what you want to do, but the game may have a different plan for this one. The key resource in this really excellent roguelike deck builder is pessimism, along with lack of forward thinking. Unlike most of these rogue Lyceum-style games, Slay the Spire isn't just about being good or skilled. It's about building something from scraps. It's all about making something out of what you've got instead of what you want, like a compromise between skills. This is a game that's not especially flashy, and mechanically doesn't add anything wildly new to the standard card battler formula, but when you play it, either you're hooked or you're not. The appeal of Slay the Spire is pretty particular, but for people who get it, they're in for the long haul. It's also a deceptively simple game that gets more and more complex the deeper you go into it. There's actually a lot of strategy going on behind the scenes here. None of your success is entirely dependent on luck. This is a game where a big draw is the problem solving. It always feels good to grab every card you want, but it's even better when you fix what seems like a lost cause of a deck into a useful one. Honestly, the more I talk about Slay the Spire, the more I want to play it right now, so I guess that's proof there's some kind of addiction thing going on here. At number 17, we have Dead Cells, another roguelike, but this time a lot more action-oriented. Dead Cells is a game where quick reflexes are required. Does that mean that this is potentially the anti-addictive game because you have to try so hard to succeed at it? But no, it's still very addictive, and that is because that gameplay loop is extremely satisfying. You hit something, it feels like you hit something, it responds to the hit, and you want to do it again, and you beat a stage, and you feel like the best, etc., etc. It just gives you a lot of tools, a lot of ways of tackling any single problem, keeps you exploring, experimenting, but the real ass kicker is the meta progression in this game, and it is exactly what it sounds like. The game's already got its regular old progression, but there is a progression that is above the progression. Meta progression. It keeps you hooked by giving you rewards, even if that run fails. Things like permanent upgrades to your health, to your abilities, new weapons. You always feel like you're getting stronger, even if you die in the game and lose the progress of a run, you're actually becoming more powerful in the meta progression. It's a perfect incentive for addictive gameplay. There's a lot of other games have adopted this as a principle, but Dead Cells, first of all, is probably one of the most addictive games, even if it didn't have a mechanic like this, but that's just kind of like supercharging things in probably a way you don't need to do on humanity. At number 16 is Kingdom Come Deliverance, and its sequel, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. If you're just starting, I fully recommend playing the first game first. It's not just because I don't want somebody to come at me with the play the new version on the next-gen consoles. No, they're going to be two great games, but the experience you're going to get if you start with the sequel is a mitigated experience. Look, at first glance, Kingdom Come Deliverance looks like a pretty standard first-person RPG thing, but it's got a lot of innovative little details. First, mass appeal. It's a realistic setting. There's no magic, no actual dragons. These looked and felt like real medieval European games, but they also kind of actually have more in common with something like Gothic or Risen than an Elder Scrolls. It's stuff like the more grounded story, the kind of unique or perhaps a little jarring at first combat system that puts greater emphasis on your movement and the challenges of the world. You start out pretty helpless in these games. You're not able to do a whole lot, you have to learn. That's actually one of the most unusual things about it. The main character grows and changes throughout the game. You get to see him progress from someone who can't do much of anything to someone who's kind of a grotesquely overpowered monster by the end. Both games have that unique charm that makes them hard to put down once you get through those initial skill trees and start understanding the world that is Kingdom Come Deliverance. Coming in at number 15, it's The Sims 4. Talk about a game that you can just keep playing, get excited for the DLC, cause, it's gonna have some staying power just cause it doesn't necessarily stop. The ability to model real-world activities has always made The Sims both appealing and addictive, and also very appealing and addictive to normies who weren't normal gamers, but would dump hundreds and hundreds of hours into a game. And those activities extend to the modding community and give fans unprecedented control over the game. It makes it endlessly replayable. There's always something forever different. There's somebody figuring out some new niche of life to explore or something to do. Ultimately, that core gameplay loop is so adaptable and fluid, and it's remained unchanged since the first game. Raising a family, destroying a rival's family, cheating death with mods, possibly weird philosophical musings on the fragility of life that I'm injecting that may have nothing to do with why the game is addictive. You can do nearly anything you can imagine in The Sims 4. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to have anything to do with the point of the game. As long as you're pressing the buttons, you're doing a good job keeping up the addiction, and that creativity that's what makes it addictive. Next on the list at number 14, we have The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The addictive part of The Witcher 3 is pretty easy to pin down. It's the contracts. They follow a rather simple formula. In reality, they're like little detective stories that aren't very difficult. You go here, you find evidence of the monster, you piece together the crime, and then you kill it. Every single one of these things has something about it that gives you a sense of realism, a smidge of complexity that makes it seem like the world's real. The contracts themselves are this incredibly addictive minigame within The Witcher 3. If you're not already hooked on The Witcher 3 by itself, a masterfully crafted open-world RPG that strikes that perfect balance between exploration and narrative depth, they got these little side stories. They often kind of worked a little better than some of the main quests, and they aren't even the same developers. I mean, they really are. They pull you into the world of The Witcher in a way that playing the main story isn't going to. Of course, you're gonna do some of that in the main story, but it's not real focused on solving a mysterious case and piecing together clues to realize actually both this random woman and the monster that she defrauded in creating some sort of scheme are both equally bad. There's no good guy here. It's just fun stuff. They're engaging side quests, and they can keep you absorbed and glued to the screen for hours and hours. They range from a little bit bonkers to very, very world-building monstrosities or real things going on. In a lot of cases, you can talk to them, man. They give you a lot of complexity, a lot of moral complexity that is, and a lot of fun. Coming in at number 13, we're required now to mention Red Dead Redemption 2. The rule is, if you say Witcher 3, you have to say Red Dead Redemption 2. Also, it's a pretty damn good game and very easily addictive. If you have that tendency to get addicted to a well-crafted open world, Red Dead is the game for you. Probably even more so than The Witcher 3. Both offer long, extensive storylines plus lots and lots and lots of side stuff to do. Red Dead Redemption 2, though, for whatever reason, it really pulls you into its meticulous world. Its immersive environment keeps people coming back for more. Yeah, you might get initially frustrated by how slow everything in the game is, but that is something that in this game you learn to love, not that you get used to it. There are games that slow everything down and it just ends up annoying you, but not for Red Dead Redemption 2 because you'll end up liking it, or at least I do. I know there are some people out there that probably don't love it, but it absorbs you into its storyline, and to be frank, I'm not one of these people that's like Red Dead Redemption 2 story is a lot better than the first one. And I really like the first one. I think the first storyline is very, very good, but this might be honestly the best written game I've ever played. I know that's a very grandiose statement, but it might actually be. I mean, the writing is fantastic. Let me put it this way. Thoroughly unlikable people become markedly likable during this game. I mean, Uncle, annoying as hell in the first Red Dead Redemption, this time around, it's a fun old dork who you kind of just want to ride off into nihilism together. Anyway, that is for you to discover this game if you haven't. So, at least, if you're already done with The Witcher 3, follow it up with Arthur Morgan's Wild West Adventure. At number 12 is Hogwarts Legacy, a game that is eminently replayable, and it allows you to get more practically addicted to the idea of attending Hogwarts more than any fantasy dork ever could dream. And I'm not saying fantasy dork as an insult. I mean, I'm a fantasy dork. I am the dork talking to you about fantasy. Not just because it's open world, not just because it's an action RPG, the real X factor is Hogwarts. They pretty much made a child dork fantasy into a massive, fully explorable location. The first time playing, you don't even need to worry about content you can make, which is what makes these types of games addictive. The exploring is more than enough for most people. So when you finally get bored of the entire fully explorable Hogwarts, that's when they throw in the content and it just pretty much sucks you right back in. There's a lot of intricately made, interesting stuff, especially if you're a fan of the books and movies. The world is fun, it's charming, and none of this is groundbreaking in concept. It's just kind of fantasy Grand Theft Auto in a few ways, but also a ton of actual Hogwarts exploring. But if that's all it was, wouldn't be so many repeat fans who keep playing it over and over again. I mean, there's plenty of them. A few people here have put in hundreds, maybe even thousands of hours in a Hogwarts Legacy. It's something you could go back to anytime, and pretty much anytime you go back to it, it's gonna suck you back into it. It's a pretty damn hard game to get bored of. At number 11 is Satisfactory, a first-person game that is absurdly difficult to stop playing. There's no narrative, there's no endpoint really, at least no intentional endpoint. The game just stops with a big unfinished sign. It's paradoxically a game about stopping and restarting that never wants you to stop playing. See, the entire goal of this game is to create the biggest, most efficient factory you possibly can that creates the greatest number of goods as fast as possible. So you can send these goods up into space to an unknown benefactor who sends you back rewards that let you make even more in a shorter amount of time. Sounds pretty simple and pretty repetitive, and it is, but that doesn't make it bad. I mean, people love building things to be efficient. So they'll dismantle parts, make them more streamlined, restart for the ground up. Each time they get a new resource they can exploit, they rebuild the factory. And each time you learn new quirks, new tricks, building the perfect factory is getting that much closer for a hardcore Satisfactory players. The real game doesn't even start until the second or third run, when you really understand the basic systems enough to start cranking up efficiency to absurd levels. It is very much about mastery and repetitive mastery at that. But again, doesn't make it bad. I mean, that is good. Next on the list at number 10, we have Cyberpunk 2077. Now, for a lot of people, Cyberpunk 2077 is a game of two eras before and after Update 2.0. For some, Update 2.0, also a certain persuasion of console players mean after being updated to 2.0 and having gotten a new console. But beyond the first few weeks, post-release, buggy mess, though the game was, it hooked some people, and those people are probably pretty stark raving insane at this point because they're still playing it. There's some that quite literally, it might be one of their primary games. They might play a game or two a year, and one of them is always Cyberpunk 2077. I mean, Update 2.0 certainly helped in that regard. It improved things. That's probably not just an understatement, but a grotesquely disastrous understatement. But even the start of the game on the wall, it had some pretty addictive stuff going for it. Obviously, it's pretty easy to talk about how half-baked some of the systems in the original rendition were, but it was still fun to explore Night City and really just see how deeply you can immerse yourself. Some people, streaming setup looks like a den in Cyberpunk 2077. It's kind of awesome how far some people are willing to go with it. And you know what? Some people, they're willing to go there. I'm not going to stop them. In fact, I'm going to encourage it, because I think that's pretty cool. I mean, other things have captured similar moods, but Night City pretty one of a kind. So if that is your fixation, yeah, I get it. It's not difficult to get sucked into this. And for me, on a repeat basis. At number 9 is the Planet Crafter. The concept behind the game is simple. You're dropped on an inhospitable planet with nothing. Then your goal is to make it a thriving, verdant environment. You do so by mining resources using those mines materials to incrementally improve your base until it's an automated, self-sufficient factory of terraforming goodness. This is one of those games you have to be careful with, or you might blink and discover an entire evening turned night, morning, and eventually day completely absorbed in this game and lost to sands of time. Why does this one sink its teeth so deeply? Well, for one, those teeth are pretty damn sharp. There's elements of base building and resource management in many other survival games, but this one just removes it. There's no survival at all. Ultimately, it's just cause to build, and why do you build? So you can better, suddenly easier terraform a planet. It gets into your head, slowly transforming this useless little patch of land into something amazing. And soon you'll find you're building automated drill systems, unlocking a jetpack, making giant nuclear reactors, and everything is so seamless. That's what hooks people into the Planet Crafter, the feeling of constant progression. You know, you're getting something done and you can't stop because you gotta know what's next. This is what this is all about. At number 8 is Icarus, another survival game. Survival games pretty addictive as a rule. Oftentimes they'll hook you with the build-up feeling of creating something from nothing, and Icarus definitely has that feeling in spades. The game's got a unique spin on the formula that makes it possibly even more addictive. Base game, pretty simple. Get dropped on a hostile alien planet. You got a limited amount of time to build resources and complete objectives. Sounds straightforward, but no, it's good. It requires a lot of strategic thinking. Your time is your enemy. You can't just build a giant permanent base residence, then go off into the wilderness, and then when you're done, you'll stumble your way home. You have to consider the goals of each prospect, either when and where you'll need to set up camp. And unlike some other games of this type that allow you for hours of mindless busy work to satisfy those crafting mechanics, there's a lot more meticulous planning and risk in Icarus. Like, you have to manage your time resources carefully to succeed, and there's a little more thrill of danger in the air constantly. It's kind of like if a roguelike was a crafting survival game, not so much in that it resets you and that you die, but it resets you and that you hit a clock. Certainly the immediate gameplay is similar enough to games like that, but that extra layer of risk kind of makes it something you'll really can help, but to start another prospect even at like inhuman hours of the morning. At number 7 is Risk of Rain 2. This is a fast-paced roguelike with gameplay that is immediate adrenaline rush city. You gotta be on your toes at all times because otherwise you will lose your current run to some monster that looked pretty non-threatening, but turned out to be a nightmare on wheels when the teleporter event starts. It's actually not a game I'd put in the addictive category when you first start, because it's extremely difficult. You're probably going to die a lot and not get very far. But once you start getting a hang of things and learning the best path to take, all that practice is going to bear some pretty exciting fruits. You'll start running into these insane scenarios where you're desperately holding on against bottomless waves of monsters, and you've got this ridiculous build with these utterly stupid amounts of crazy, stacked buffs. Risk of Rain 2 is a game where in the last few levels, either you're completely wiping the floor with the enemies, or you're fighting for your life every step of the way. And to be frank, it often feels like those two things are happening simultaneously. It's a game that scales. You get better at it. It's a game you keep playing and you don't stop playing, and you might end up even buying it on some platforms. You forgot you already owned it on, because that's exactly the type of game it is. At number 6 is Shadows of Doubt, a real odd game that if it hits you the right way, it's going to consume your life. If you're not already familiar, Shadows of Doubt is an immersive sim detective game set in an infinite procedurally generated city. In fact, proceed to generate it in 3D immersive sim detail. Like every single civilian has a simulated life, job, home, workplace, routine. Nothing super essential to the game is pre-scripted. Like, there is a story you can play and it's a good starting point for learning the game, but once that story is over, things get really interesting. The on-demand cases it generates when a city is fully under your control gives you some of the most dynamic and compelling emergent narratives you can think of. Like, it simulates everything, so anything can happen. It says that the job of solving crimes mimics the job of creating them within the game, and figuring out how something happened is some of the most satisfying emergent gameplay you'll ever see. Once you wrap your mind around how things work, it's very sorely tempting to just keep creating new cities and solving crimes. It's what's different than other games where emerge gameplay exists, because this is really what its focus is on. It's basically a Jason Bourne situation, but it's a game that would often not typify addiction, puzzle games. It's kind of neat how it works, and if it works on you, it'll really work on you. You may also find it's not your cup of tea, and that's fine, but Shadows of Doubt is a very impressive system that if it works well. At number 5 is Grim Dawn. Look, we couldn't just put Path of Exile or Diablo 4 on this list. That's too easy, man. When you think about an addictive game at this point, you think about the age-old action, RPG gameplay, loop of mowing down hordes, getting ref to scale, huge numbers, and a giant ding of doom booty. It's really fun, really simple. These games are almost rhythm games at this point. Grim Dawn is like the perfect anti-venom for all the bullshit that's been added to these games in recent years. I'm not saying these games should be boiled down to their basics, or they shouldn't be evolved in some way, but sometimes they overwhelm you with systems, charge a whole bunch of money, and don't give you everything. I'll be frank, Grim Dawn is something you can lose yourself in for hundreds of hours, and you don't have to pay for absolutely anything other than the game in order to do that. And there's less of this other crap. To be frank, these games can get a little taxing. It just has a more straightforward approach, which is rewarding upon mastery. There's always some new perfect build to create or some new class combination to test out, fun boss fights to learn. It's stuff like this that makes Grim Dawn more appealing than a lot of its contemporaries and more addictive too. At number 4 is SnowRunner, a game I would usually say you'd have to be a masochist to play, at least at this point, an amount of time that would be to these other games addictive. To be clear, SnowRunner is like a very unforgiving game about hauling gear across shitty terrain. Like, there might be some terrain that's not entirely shitty in it, but all the 100% of the time that you're playing it, you're spending driving trucks through an entire world that seems like it laid out a red carpet for you. But the carpet was made out of some kind of mud that was not solid at all because you get stuck constantly. I'm joking. It sounds like I'm being negative when I say this, but it's roughly the equivalent of Euro Truck Simulator or American Truck Simulator. Only one where you have to constantly be on your toes because you're always this far away from getting completely stuck in random nowhere North America. It sounds frustrating because it frankly is, but that actually ends up adding to the satisfaction when you finally manage to complete a particularly end of the haul. So for instance, in Euro Truck or American Truck, you would drive to the destination and you would park. You will do that in this game, except for it. You do a lot less driving to the destination and a lot more laying down planks to drive over a San Francisco mud flow. On top of that, the game does actually simulate shifting gears, so it's less just straight driving than maneuvering. So it goes the full simulation pig trucker game, but you know what? That honestly makes it a little more satisfying. Finally hauling something over a impossible glacier, cooler than going across I-80, which isn't to say dissing American Truck Simulator, that's still a lot of fun as well, but SnowRunner provides a little more friction. Coming in at number 3, we have Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord. How do you describe Mount and Blade to somebody? It's kind of hard, actually, and it is a specific kind of game. But yeah, the combination of management, sieging, and defeating armies on horse in real time, it's exactly the kind of mess that you just keep doing. Progression in this game can be a little bit less than fun at first. You can struggle a little bit, especially if you're brand new to this type of game, which, frankly, there isn't a lot of games like this. So even if you're familiar with some mechanics, you'll probably not understand others, at least at first. But once you get it roll, and this is one of the most enjoyable Conqueror's sims out there. There's this entire world that looks like the map screen in Total War and you can travel around it. Once you zoom in, you're back down on the ground and doing stuff. Eventually, if you got the men and the power and the stuff, they let you burn it into the ground. That is quite excellent. The thing with Mount and Blade 2 is it's this massive game with a lot of interlocking systems. I mean, there's stuff that would be a full game in menus, but it's just one aspect of Mount and Blade 2, and that's why you can lose noodles hours. Like, if something doesn't make sense to you, at first you can try to avoid it. If you get into it, great. If it finally clicks after hours and hours of trying, well, that's even better. It's a game where you're expected to lose again and again, but once things start falling into place, it's astoundingly good. It's like one of those mastery games, but on crack. Next on the list at number 2, we've got Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, this is the newest installment in the Monster Hunter franchise. For those who don't know, I've always been a sucker for this series. I've been playing these games since the PSP days, and I've stuck with them ever since. That said, I've got to be honest with you, compared to the amount of time I spent on Monster Hunter World, I haven't been playing Wilds nearly as much. And it's not because it's any less fun, it's just that other games like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and a bunch of recent releases are eating up my time. That being said, the core formula from past Monster Hunter games is still very much here, and honestly, it's better than ever. There are a ton of new features like enhanced map traversal, brand new environments, and most importantly, all new monsters to hunt again and again. Of course, some of the classic monsters are still roaming around, and that only adds to the fun. These familiar foes we used to know, they've gotten fiercer, so don't make the mistake of underestimating them. Now, whether or not you're a newcomer to the series or an old cart-scarred veteran like myself, I'm gonna say it right now. If you haven't gotten into these games yet, now is probably the best time. The Monster Hunter games are excellent, and they are mostly just what they are. They don't deviate too much, there's not a lot of bull crap. Honestly, I don't even have anything to say here. If you've played a Monster Hunter game, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, well, check one of them out and you'll figure out what I'm talking about. There is a demo available for Monster Hunter Wilds on Steam right now. If you're a newcomer, I highly suggest playing the demo first before diving in. Yes, they are kind of their own breed of thing, and getting a hold of it before you pay them money is, well, a great idea. And finally, down at number 1, we've got The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion Remastered. Now, if you've already played the original version, then you already know what you're going into if you play the remastered version. But for those who are about to play the game for the first time, then I have to tell you that you're totally gonna love this game. This is one of the legendary games from the past that Bethesda gives a new life. And honestly, it kind of is one of those games that probably translates better because it's a little simpler than later games, in some ways a little bit more simple than Morrowind even. I mean, Bethesda games, even the bad ones, they're already pretty addictive as is, and Oblivion is one of the top games that's very addictive. But thanks to its graphical improvements, this remaster should be more immersive and potentially more addictive. The only downside is that we don't have the plethora of mods that the previous game had, thanks to the modding community, by the way. But it's only a matter of time because, well, modding is basically built into these games. You're stupid if you think that mods aren't coming, and they can end up making the games way more addictive. Even with this being a remaster, you're still gonna lose hundreds, if not thousands, of hours playing it, spending time traveling across Cyrodiil, looking at mud crabs. So yeah, those are just a few of the addictive games we're featuring right now. If you got any suggestions that should be on this list, let us know in the comments below.